newspaper. Thank you so much for coming out this evening to our Know Your Vote event, so we can learn a little bit more about the ballot measures that we're going to be seeing in this year's ballot. Before we get started, I wanted to take an opportunity to thank some of the people that made this event possible. Now, obviously, the Liberty Hill Independent is the one that is hosting this event, but we had a lot of support from some great people, and I want to take the time to thank Rachel Acosta, Director of Communications with LH ISD, Katie Ansler, Director of Community Engagement and Communications with the City of Liberty Hill. The culinary students have created a wonderful appetizer spread with Liberty Hill High School, so we truly appreciate their hard work in that. And our panelists that have taken the time out of already their busy schedules to come out this evening to educate us a little bit more. And of course, Legacy Ranch High School for giving us the facilities so we can host the event tonight. Now, here's a little bit quick of a rundown of what you can expect this evening. To those of the people that are here in person, there is a handout that looks a little something like this in the back. If you haven't gotten one, please do, because it not only has the ballot language for the ballot measures that you'll see and that we're discussing tonight, but it also has a series of QR codes that you can scan when you get back home to do more research on the ballot measures that we discussed tonight. And it also has the link to the Williamson County elections page, where you can learn a little bit more about the polling locations as well as early voting dates. Kind of the lay of the land that you can expect today is the first half of tonight will be a panel discussion on the ballot measures you'll see that impact the school district, and ballot measures you'll see that impact the City of Liberty Hill. We'll first kick it off with the Know Your Vote section, which is what we'll discuss with the ballot measures, and then we'll conclude with a really neat casual conversation called Know Your Media, where we'll have professional journalists and educators on a panel to discuss some of how media has evolved and how local journalism is impacting the community today. So without further ado, we're going to kick it off with our panel discussion. I want to introduce who's here today. Starting from the far left, we have Mr. Brian Rivera, who is the Charter Commission President for the Home Rule Charter. Next to him, we have our very own Mayor Crystal Mancia. Representing the Liberty Hill Independent School District, we have Superintendent Steve Snell, School Board President Megan Parsons, and School Board Vice President Kathy Major. Thank you all so much for being here this evening. I want to kick it off with talking about the ballot measures that we're going to see that impact the school district. For our audience, currently there are two propositions that impact the school district. Proposition A, funding for Liberty Hill schools, and Proposition B, attendance credit election. I want to start with asking questions about Proposition A, funding for Liberty Hill schools. The ballot language for Proposition A states, ratifying the ad valorem tax rate of $1.2269 per $100 valuation in the Liberty Hill Independent School District for the current year, a rate that will result in an increase of 21% in maintenance and operations tax revenue for the district for the current year as compared to the preceding year, which is an additional $13,334,196. Here's the first question. According to LHvotes.com, the current tax rate has decreased by 37 cents over the last 6 years. This proposition claims it will add 6 pennies back onto the tax rate. If the current tax rate has maintained itself for the last 6 years, why the increase now? What's changed? Nobody fight over the mic.
All right, I think this is on. Yeah, so there's a lot of factors that affect school budget, and it becomes very, very complicated when you're looking at it. Our funding as a school district has not changed since 2019. So that's almost 6 years of no revenue increase, no new money to our schools. Liberty Hill has seen growth of students, and we get some additional revenue from that, but the whole community and the school district feel the pressures of inflation. As we grow, there's lots of challenges. There's a lot more bills to pay, more square footage to clean, to HVAC, everything. When we don't get any more new money, it becomes a strain on our system. So With that, we're asking the district for, our community, for a tax increase of 6 cents back off the 37 cents that we've decreased the rate, and that will give us $6.2 million. In addition, one of the biggest challenges for the school district is there's revenue that was taken from us beyond our control. Liberty Hill ISD lost $2 million in fast growth allotment. We've lost $1.1 million in SHAR's medical reimbursements for services we provided. And with the new homestead exemption, which is good for taxpayers, we have lost an additional $1.5 million in state revenue. That's almost $4.5 million. In addition, there's several state mandates that we're happy to provide our students, and there's a little bit of funding for those, but we're underfunded a little bit. So we're underfunded for things like special education by almost $3 million, pre-K by almost $500,000. The safety and security requirements that we are very happy to provide to keep our students and staff safe is about $1.5 million underfunded. So when you look at all the underfunded mandates, plus the revenue that was taken from us beyond our control, we're looking at a loss of almost $9 million. And we've done a lot. We have cut $2 million from our expenditures, but now we're sitting at $7.5 million deficit. So we are asking our community to support a 6 cents tax increase so we can balance our budget, give our staff raises, and plan for the future. We have 1,300 new students this year over last year, and we're expecting 1,000 students for the foreseeable future. Those come with challenges, and we'll need additional staff for those growth. So that's what we're looking at in terms of financial challenges for the state.
I just want to add to Mr. Snell what he's just saying. If you notice, he mentioned a lot of things that are outside of our control here locally that have affected funding. As a school board, one of the things that we're in charge of is the budgets, and we are audited every year. We've done an efficiency audit before we could even go out for this. It's called a VADER, Voter Approved Tax Ratification Election. And in order to go out for a VADER, we have to basically show that we have everything in order and what we're doing to try to make sure that we're as efficient as possible before we go out to our community and ask for more money. Also, one of the reasons we've waited till now to do it is we don't want to raise taxes. Nobody really wants a tax increase. We were hoping that the state would come through in the last legislative session and fund public schools with the money that they do have set aside for public schools. They did not do that. And so at this point, if we are going to maintain the level of excellency that I believe we have in LHISD, we are asking our voters for help on that.
I think if there's anything I would like to say about this is to highlight what is not different. And that's the quality of education that you get in Liberty Hill. If you talk to parents that are moving in, they shop the districts in the Central Texas area and they choose us. And I feel a real sense of almost arrogant pride about that because I've been part of the team for so long that we have worked really, really hard to keep a strong, conservative, well-funded, but economic budget. And the things that, as a former teacher, that frustrate me about this is, as Mr. Snell and Ms. Parsons said, so many of these things are out of our control. And I would say that Liberty Hill has something very, very special, and that hasn't changed. But teaching from 1991 to 2017, when I retired, teachers every year do more with less every year, and we've gotten to a breaking point where we can't expect that to continue and maintain the quality of education that is Liberty Hill.
Thank you all so much. I appreciate it. Next question. LHvotes.com also shares that the proposition will support teacher salaries, teacher recruitment, and instructional and extracurricular programs. If this proposition were to pass, where will the district's first priority be in utilizing these funds?
That's a great question. So, with the $6.2 million we would get if Proposition A passes, every staff member would get a raise. Currently, in our current budget situation, no staff received a raise. So they would get a 2% raise. That comes at a cost to the district of $4.1 million. So 2/3 of it goes straight to the salaries of our employees. The other two will go to fund growth positions to cover the 1,000 new kids we have this year and the plan for next year with the 1,000 new kids we'll have. So all of this is going to salaries and staff raises.
I was going to say too, so basically, if it passes, as Mr. Snell was saying, where that money would go, you can look at it as kind of keeping LHISD whole and being able to function at the same level that we have been currently functioning. If it doesn't pass, because I have been asked as a board member, y'all should not, you need to balance your budget. You shouldn't have a deficit budget. It means you're overspending and you're not using your money wisely. Well, that is correct, and so we will have to balance the budget if this does not pass. And what that means is there will be cuts. None of us want to make those cuts, and it will be very hard decisions, but we will have to do that to balance the budget.
And I think teaching instruction is always the priority. And the thing that I think about when I think about the cuts that we have struggled with is there's not been a study about how much it costs to educate a child just at a conservative, strong level. And in those we have had discussion about what it costs Liberty Hill. It might cost Leander a different amount or Burnett a different, but for us it's right around $10,000. And Mr. Snell talked about in 2019, they did raise our basic allotment to $61.60. But with inflation, we should be receiving now $7,400 per child from the state just to meet the inflation costs. So the priority is to balance the budget, but then look at what we need to do to maintain the teachers in the classroom, quality teachers in the classroom, which research shows is the most important element to a child being successful in their learning. So for all of us, but especially me, what do we need to do with this money to maintain quality teaching and learning so our kids can be productive?
Yeah, of course, please, go for it.
So as Mrs. Major made the point, the basic allotment, the state does budget $6,160 per child, but we don't get that. So we are funded on our attendance rate. Last year our attendance rate was 94%, so we actually only get 94% of that $6,160, which is about $5,790. So when you think about that, and then you think about all the additional challenges that it puts not only our school district, but every public school district in a bind. Right now, we're only worried about our children, Liberty Hill ISD, and our teachers, and we want our community to support this so we can continue to support our teachers and help them meet the challenges of the day. We mentioned Liberty Hill is one of the highest performing academic districts in the state. We excel at fine arts, we excel at athletics, and our vision is to build champions in academics, character, and community. And our community pours into us a lot. Our community is very, very supportive of us, and we support our community as well. And we're asking that, the state is not broke. We worked very hard with legislatures in the last session to create a bill that would have funded not only Liberty Hill, but all public schools. That was a very good bill. It was ready to vote, and a decision was made not to vote on it. So it's left us, and I believe the number is 88% of districts in a deficit budget. Liberty Hill is no different. But $7.5 million to make that cut, that's almost 100 staff members. So think about the impact on our district if we lost 100 staff members and we're growing by 1,000 students. That would have a detrimental effect on us. And then think about the community of Liberty Hill. Think about our small businesses, our restaurants, our car washes, our dry cleaners. When 100 staff members leave the community, what kind of economic impact that has, or when they can no longer afford to go to those businesses. So this is, like Kathy Major said, this is about Liberty Hill. It's not just about the school district, it's about the community, it's about our kids, and it's about the economy of Liberty Hill.
Thank you all for such a thorough answer to that question. I appreciate it. Just last year, voters passed Liberty Hill school bonds totaling $471.1 million. For voters that are seeking a better understanding, can you explain the difference between school bonds versus a tax rate increase that's proposed in Proposition A?
I can start, and Mr. Snell will follow up. Ultimately, school funding comes from two different buckets. You have the interest and sinking tax, and you have the maintenance and operations tax. Those two tax rates are added together to get your school tax rate. The interest and sinking tax has not increased in how many years? It's been at 50 cents for many years. And that is the one that when you pass a bond, that is the money that covers that bond debt. So we have said that if you pass the bond in Liberty Hill, it did not increase your tax rate. And that is true, because that 50 cents has stayed the same. Your tax bill may have gone up because of your tax value of your house going up, or your appraised value of your house going up, but the tax rate stayed the same. What we're asking for on this election is for an increase in our maintenance and operation tax rate. It is currently at the 1.16 cents, and well, that's the total. Basically, the total is at 1.16, and we're asking for it to go up to 1.22 cents, so per $100 of assessed value. So that is an actual tax increase. So we are asking for a tax increase, and that money in the maintenance operations is how we pay teachers, how we provide curriculum, instruction, how we keep the lights on. It's how our school district functions on a day-to-day basis, separate from the interest and sinking tax.
And I'll answer that question as well. So again, Liberty Hill is a very fast-growing district. We grew by 1,000 kids this year. When you think about it, that's growing by almost a middle school a year as we go forward. As we look to the end of the decade, we're going to be approaching 18,000 students. We need space for those students, so we passed the bond in 2023. We passed another similar bond in 21 and 18. Those are to build schools. We do a lot of research on that, a lot of analytics. We have a lot of our community involved, and we have an extremely supportive community that understands those bonds, understands exactly what we get for those bonds, and they're voter approved. And I'm proud to say in Liberty Hill, the building bonds were approved by a higher percentage rate than any other district in the state of Texas in 2023. So we're very thankful for our community for that. On the INS side, that money can only be spent on the building facilities that the voters voted on and were promised. So we have to keep the integrity of that. We're not allowed by law to spend that money on anything else but those bills. The maintenance and operations side, like President Parsons said, covers everything else. And that amount hasn't changed on the basic allotment side. So we all know, because your household is facing the same pressures of inflation that we are. So as your utility bills go up, ours go up. As your fuel cost goes up, ours goes up. As your house insurance, as your car insurance, as everything, your groceries, the food we provide, as everything is felt the pressure of inflation, we have as well. Only we're not seeing additional revenue. And as we grow, we're opening new schools. So the cost of opening new schools is a large cost. And then the cost of fuel, with 1,000 new kids, believe it or not, we're transporting 400 more students. So it's more gas, it's more utilities, the price of everything has not gone down. So we're feeling the financial strain of all that growth. So that's why we're asking for the 4 pennies, and that's the difference. Interest and sinking on the building bonds can only be spent on that by law. Maintenance and operations side takes care of our salaries, all of our employees, 1,400 employees, about 56% are teachers, 28% directly support teachers. You've got 11% custodial staff and 4% central office. So we're pretty light on our staff, and like we mentioned earlier, we're having to pay our staff less, even though that accounts for more percentage of our budget than the districts around us. So we need the tax, or we're asking for the tax revenue really to cover our staff and all the additional expenses.
I just want to clarify, I think you said 4 pennies, it's 6 pennies. I just want to clarify that.
And I don't know if this adds to it, but you have to put things in simplest form for people like me. The bond is our mortgage on the building, just like my mortgage on my house. The maintenance and operation where we're asking for help is all the other bills. It's the light, it's the fuel, it's the food, it's who helps, everything else is there. And it's illegal to cross from the bond. People might not know this, but we had about 100 citizens work on long-range planning to help us determine that and define that for the community. And if people are new to the community, they may not know how in-depth that planning was. And for me, that was really an exciting experience because it wasn't just a rubber stamp on the bonds. There was a lot of dynamic and a lot of back and forth and dialogue and planning and compromise and collaboration. So, but once that was voted on, you can't move that across. That's illegal, as Mr. Snell said, and that's one of the things that in our third-person audit they look at. Are we using our funds legally? Our efficiency audit? Are we using them appropriately? And like I said before, this is not anything new to Liberty Hill. When I came in '91, we were struggling with budget, but we have done that. But we're at a breaking point now where, yeah, we're going to have to do major cuts, and these are our kids we're talking about. And I really think our kids deserve to have a maintenance and operation fund that will run our schools and not just have less than they deserve.
So we mentioned teacher salaries kind of being the priority with this proposition, but there's that other aspect of it that talked about instructional and extracurricular programs. So if this proposition doesn't go through, what's at risk in regards to the instructional and extracurricular side?
So one of the things that our school board has prioritized over the past few years is growing our CTE programs, which are career and technical. And we have many programs. We have construction, electrical, computer science. We have welding, many programs. And honestly, we'd like to have more because we believe it's important to our community. Those are things that are not, if you get down to the basics of what is required to educate a kid, you've got your math and reading, or, you know. And so those are the things that do have to be looked at when you're trying to cut costs. And so those are at risk. I would say, honestly, everything has to be looked at when you're having to cut an amount of $7.5 million. We'll have to look across the board.
Yeah, and to that point, our school board has done an excellent job. They set the budget priorities, very conservative fiscally board. Priority number one is our students and making sure our students have everything they need to get the best quality education possible. Number two is our staff. Everything we can to maximize our teachers' salaries. And so when you talk about cuts, every cut we make ends up on the back of another employee, right? Probably the classroom teacher. So you look at our teachers who have more and more challenges and mandates from the state, more and more challenges coming into our doors every day. They're tired, they're exhausted, but they're working their tails off for our kids, and they're not getting raises. You know, so you look at that, and how much is enough is enough. So we need to take care of our staff, we need to take care of our students. So when you look at cutting $7.5 million, how do you do it? You know, you chip away at everything. You chip away at the fabric of Liberty Hill ISD and the quality of education we provide. And, you know, that's why it's so important. We mentioned in the opening statement, we do not want to raise taxes. The state of Texas is not broke. They have plenty of money to fund public education. They chose not to. So now we're having to ask our community for help. And it's a big ask because we're all struggling financially. But $7.5 million, when in a $100 million budget, $15 million are books, instructional supplies, programs, and all the bills. $85 million is salaries. Where do you cut $7.5 million? The budget gets tight, and then we're not able to provide the adequate staff to meet the needs of our students and the growth in our district.
To add on that, as a former classroom teacher, I think about where we might have 22, 23 kids in a classroom, and when we do the cuts, that can go up to 27, 28, depending on how many cuts we make. And I do know that you want to reach all the kids, but incrementally, you can't spend the time on the kids in a class of 27 to 30 that you can at 22 to 25. And I've done both in Liberty Hill. I've done both in Liberty Hill. And the other thing in it was we had to make some choices like that in 2011 because the state was broke. And we were having to figure out how we were going to meet those deficits. And we didn't hire when somebody left. We didn't hire. So our classes went up. And I remember that very clearly because my grade levels were outside the restriction of the 22 to 1. And there were 5th and 6th grade classrooms that had in excess of 27 children. And when you look at cuts, like Mr. Snell said, it's 15% of our budget is the stuff. 85% of our budget are the people. And if we cut CTE programs, if we cut extracurricular programs, if we have to cut UIL, either academic or athletics, those are things that we're going to have to do because the money is not there. And it's not like the state doesn't have it, but I think that's a whole nother issue that I might not want to speak about tonight.
All right, last question for Proposition A, and then we have Proposition B, so we still have a little ways to go. Voters 65 and older, how may they be protected from these tax payment changes?
That would be me. No, my house on the acre that it sits on is frozen. My taxes on that acre will not go up. Now, I have other land that I will pay taxes on, but your homestead is your homestead. It's at that level. I can predict what I'm going to pay on that, and I put that away every month. I put my taxes away, so when it comes time to pay them, it's there. I feel very protected, but I think the thing that goes back for a lot of people is how does it affect if your value goes up? My tax rate doesn't. That's what we said on the board. My tax rate doesn't go up, but my value of my property has. And that's where I struggle, always trying to figure out how that impacts us, because as a retired person on a fixed income, it's all about planning. But in doing this, I'm protected, and I feel very strong that this is not going to negatively impact people of my age category.
Thank you. All right, we're going to move on to Proposition B, Attendance Credit Election. The ballot language for Proposition B states, authorizing the Board of Trustees of the Liberty Hill Independent School District to purchase attendance credits with local tax revenues. So the first question, I just kind of want to start off with laying some foundation. If you can offer clarity to voters, can you explain what is the recapture system and what are attendance credits?
Yeah, I think you better handle it.
Okay, so Proposition B is a requirement once a district goes into recapture. So you might not have heard the term recapture, but you might have heard the term Robin Hood, where in the past school districts could partner, they would either pay the state or another district, and there would be some wealth equalization among school districts for that. In the recapture world, they look at the wealth of the tax generated per student. So we have been a property wealthy district for many years, but our growth has kept us out of actually paying recapture. This year, with a successful Proposition A, we would have to pay recapture. And this is important to understand. Although Proposition B is a requirement, basically by statute, the voters have to give Liberty Hill ISD permission to make the recapture payment to the state. So if they vote in favor of Proposition B, then the board has the authority to make our payment. This year, the estimate would be roughly $600,000 in recapture payment to the state. If Proposition B is not successful, it gets very interesting, because at that point, the state would come in and seize taxable value without voter permission or school district permission, and the way the statute is written, permanently detach property value from Liberty Hill. So wherever that section of land is that would generate the needed funds for the state, those families or those businesses would still pay Liberty Hill ISD taxes, but their tax dollars would go straight to the state, and then we would not get that back. So it gets very complicated, very confusing, but regardless, the state is going to get their money. Our recapture payment will fluctuate from year to year. There have been districts that have had to pay millions of dollars, and then they have some growth and they don't pay. And then they go back into paying. So it fluctuates from time to time, but having the attendance credit election gives us the authority to make recapture payments this year and in future years. We would not have to do that again.
Can you elaborate just a little bit on the attendance credit side? What are attendance credits and what's that?
So the language is confusing for the voters because it's called an attendance credit election. So it goes down to the per pupil student wealth. So you're basically buying enough, quote, student wealth to pay your recapture payment. And it's very interesting. So when you look at urban cities pay millions and millions of dollars. For example, I believe Austin ISD paid $800 million back to the state in recapture. We're looking at $600,000. So as your city grows, as your property values grow, and as a reminder, Liberty Hill ISD has no control over property value. That's the William County Appraisal District. So as our appraisal goes up, our wealth per student would go up unless there's growth. So it's a constantly moving target, but it's taken on that snapshot date.
I just wanted to also add, so the school board had the opportunity to decide how many pennies we wanted to ask our community for. And we had, with the help of our CFO and finance department district, they were able to give us some guidance on how that should work best. We chose 6 cents. We could have asked for more. Part of the reason we chose the 6 cents is while it did put us into recapture a little bit by the amount of around $600,000, it didn't, if we had asked for more, we would have had to pay more into recapture. We as a school board and district want to keep Liberty Hill money in Liberty Hill to use for our district. So that was a priority to us to make sure that we didn't ask our community for more money just so that we could send it back to the state of Texas. Another thing that's not exactly about Proposition B, but I just wanted to point out, is I've seen people say, well, there's growth coming, so LHISD is going to get their money. Well, unfortunately, what happens in the state of Texas is the more money we bring in locally, the state actually reduces what they give us. And that's all in this effort of trying to keep everybody equal, which, whether that works or not is a whole other discussion, but that kind of goes into the recapture and everything.
And I think the thing for me in this is if you support Proposition B, that gives us as much control over our funds as possible. I really have a personal, and I can't speak for anybody else, but I have a personal really a problem with somebody saying, all right, I'm gonna cut out this much here, and that money is coming back to us, and in the future, who knows what we may or may not have to do with pennies. Because every year we look at our budget and we set the tax rate, and I would hope at some point that that ask can be reduced. Now, I can't promise that, and I want you to hear that. I cannot promise that. But what I do know, I prefer to keep local control over money versus the state saying, oh, this is how much we're gonna take forever and use it for us. It's not for Liberty Hill.
So if Proposition B passes, what kind of changes will voters see? Like, are they gonna get another tax increase? And what's the not repercussion, but the reaction that happens once it passes? Is it something that a voter's gonna see in some kind of billing or what have you?
I can ask that. So ironically, Williamson County Appraisal District released our taxes today. So you can actually go online and type in your address and you can get the exact appraised value of your house and the exact tax amount you would have to pay, not only for school taxes, but all the other taxes that you might be responsible for. So you can see the exact number. On our website, we also have a tax calculator to make it easy as well. So if Proposition A passes, then the tax rate would raise 6 cents. Rounded up, that's 123 roughly. I'm looking at my CFO. And then you can see the exact amount and the impact on your individual household or your small business. And then that would go into effect this year, and the raise for teachers would go into effect this year. Proposition B has no impact on the tax voters. It's just about local control and giving us permission to make that payment. That payment fluctuates each year. With a lot of growth, we might even go to where we don't have to pay. So we won't know until we get our appraised value plus our enrollment what our recapture payment would be. But it gives us permission this year and in the future to make that recapture payment.
Quick follow-up for you. Is this election kind of a one-and-done election, or is it cyclical, like it happens every 3 years, or for the attendance credit election?
We can answer that. I do want to clarify on what Mr. Snell was just saying. If you go look at the Williamson County Appraisal District and see what your appraisal is, the amount that they're showing the school taxes to be already include, they're basically assuming that the VADR has already passed. So what you're seeing is the 1.22% tax rate. It's not going to be another 6 pennies over that. So I just want to clarify that they put out the information online that already shows like the voters have approved it. So you'll see it like it would be if it's approved. And to your point,
I'll give it back to you.
So I believe you asked, would we have to do another the attendance credit election? It's permanent. Once the voters pass it, it's good for the life of the school district and the current laws in the state of Texas. So the other question is, maybe is Prop A, would we have to go out for another tax increase? I think it's very, very important, not only for myself as superintendent, my school board, to advocate for Liberty Hill and to advocate for our taxpayers. And luckily in Liberty Hill, we have 2 state representatives, Colonel Wilson and Caroline Harris-Davila, that we have a great working relationship. They're very supportive of Liberty Hill, and we need to work with them, work together to get the bills passed that help Liberty Hill ISD.
what I was just going to say, if you vote yes for Proposition B, ultimately you're allowing the district to have control over how that money is sent back to the state of Texas versus the state of Texas coming in and choosing which properties they want to basically take the value of permanently from our district. So it's allowing for local control.
I do want to piggyback on what Mr. Snell was talking about. The VADR, the tax increase that we're talking about, is only one part of a solution. And I will say that we as a community do need to be talking to our state representatives, Senator Schwartzner, and there are differences of opinions there about what should be going on, but they need to hear how this is impacting Liberty Hill. They need to hear our story. We do it professionally, we do it politely, if you will, but we do it, and we stand on what's right for our kids. And then we also have to vote. And I would say not just vote on the Vader, but I would encourage you, and this is Kathy Major's statement, I can't apply it to my board members. I think they would support me in it. However, this is just my opinion. Be educated on who you're voting for. Are they, excuse me, are they in support of public schools? Are they people that are behind what we're doing so we have an educated workforce? We're the 8th largest economy in the world in Texas, 8. And we're soon, from what I'm reading, to move up to number 7. Excuse me. The reason people are coming is because we have this strong economy. If we want Texans to support that economy with a strong workforce, all our kids have to be educated and educated well. And in public education, we have some of the strongest programs for kids in CTE. We're building our military readiness, career and readiness programs. We are looking at kids that we are helping them find tracks where their talents are going to take them into careers that will make them productive citizens. And so if you vote for the Vader, you vote for people that support our kids in education, and you let our representatives know. There are some of us that fully intend to be down in Austin again during session telling that story. But if we all work together, as is the Liberty Hill way, in benefit of our children, that will bring about a solution that might answer some of these more critical financial questions.
So just one last question that kind of encompasses Proposition A and Proposition B. For residents that live in the ETJ, will they have to be voting for this? Will they be seeing it on their ballot, or is it only for city limit residents only?
He'll correct me or add to it, but it is anyone who lives in the Liberty Hill ISD district can vote on anything on the ballot pertaining to the district.
That is correct. And the first thing I would do would be to encourage everyone, no matter where you live, to go vote. There's lots of very important issues that affect where you live, and the closer those decisions are to you, the more they impact you, the more important they should be. We've got a big election coming up in November. You've got president, you've got congressmen, you've got state reps, and then we have city, we have school district. All these things are important and your voice matters. The good thing about electronic ballots is when you hand them your ID and you get a ballot, it has everything that applies to you. So if you live in our school district, you will see Liberty Hill ISD Proposition A and B on your ballot. Because they are school propositions, they will be at the very end of the ballot. So for some of y'all, that's at the bottom of page 3. For others, it's page 3 and 4. But after you make all those other decisions at the very end, just remember Prop A for teacher pay and Prop B for local control.
Ditto.
Superintendent Snell, Ms. Parsons, Ms. Major, thank you so much for being our panelists today and talking a little bit about Proposition A and Proposition B and getting us a little bit more educated. Truly appreciate it. So we're going to segue into the city ballot measure, which is the home rule charter. Now, before I start, I was asked to provide a disclaimer, so I'm going to read it before we really get started. The City of Liberty Hill provides this explanation regarding Proposition A, the Home Rule Charter proposition, for voters as educational material only. The city as an entity does not advocate for or against passage of any proposition. Voters can vote for or against the proposition. And also a reminder to the audience, after we're done with the Home Rule Charter panel, we're going to open it up to the audience. Alex on Facebook, if anyone on Facebook has a question, just let me know. I'll pass the mic your way too. All right, question number 1. If you can, oh no, there we go. Can you please explain what a home rule charter?
Oh, mic problems already.
I guess I'll be holding the mic this time. First question, please explain what a home rule charter is and why Liberty Hill is proposing one.
All right. That sounds good. Okay, so while they're fixing your battery, I can talk. So you asked what a home rule charter is, right? Is that what you said?
Why you guys are proposing?
Why you're proposing that? Well, you all, if you live inside the city, got one of these really nice things, breakdowns. I sent this to my mom because I had my signature in it. And I thought she'd be proud of me, She was like, gosh, dog, you have chicken scratch still. But anyway, that's a whole nother story. So the point of we'll go back and I'll do some civics and history lesson real quick, as quick as I can before the mayor kicks me. But most cities, or all cities, start off under the population of 5,000 as a general rule city. The best thing about a general rule city, which isn't really a best thing, because I'm sitting next to the ISD people, they're going to agree, but they won't say it here, that as a general rule city, you're pretty much controlled by the state. And the state does really good at controlling us when you're a general rule city. So you pretty much do everything according to the way the state does it, the way the state law allows. If you want anything changed, you have to wait until the odd years, and you have 140 days during that session to change what you want. So Liberty Hill, since its existence, has dealt with that. Other cities around us, like Cedar Park, they've been a home rule city since 1987. Leander's been a home rule city since 2002, I believe. And so here we are in 2024. Our population, just like the superintendent and Ms. Parsons and Ms. Major said, Liberty Hill is not getting smaller. And so we finally got to the point really fast, very, very fast. They said between 2018 and 2021, if you blinked, another 6,000 to 7,000 people came into the city, which happens every day. And so when you're a small city, like when y'all think about some of these small East Texas towns, some of these West Texas towns, it's okay. Some of those people don't come into town. They have the same buildings since 1889. Nothing really happening in that city. It's really nice for us to go and look. They have a nice little economic development. Everything's okay. But for a city like ours, it's hard to just be regulated by the state. Having to follow the state's rules and having to, anything that's prohibited by the city or by the state, and the state statutes, which are really fun, we all know that. And so you're pretty much regulated by the state what you can do and how you can grow in that direction. And so becoming a charter city or a home rule city helps out a lot in that perspective, to where we can, as we continue to grow, and as you heard, which I'm not lying, right? Because you just heard for a few minutes our lovely people in the ISD talk about how our city is growing. And so as we grow, it helps the city be able to regulate themselves, be able to govern themselves, be able to decide things themselves, be able to make, hey, this doesn't go behind state law. This is something some other cities are doing that are really working for our city. As we move in this direction, let's do that. We can put that for a vote in front of the city. You can't do that as a general rule city. So there's a lot of things, there's a lot of detail in this. If you got this in the know, these are really cool to go through. A lot of us have opened ourselves up to help explain a lot of it, because we spent a year and a half working on it. And so there's a lot of detail that goes into it, but it's really helpful to understand why the city of Liberty Hill wants to become a home rule city. I hope that makes sense.
What did you say? Just kidding.
I'll just add to that. The former council, when we were discussing bringing up to home rule, it was because our population, the projections were already at 13,000. And in my second year on council, we grew by 225%. And I know the school district had felt that growth, and we just keep growing. So home rule, the difference between general law and home rule, probably the simplest way of putting it is that the citizens have more authority or more input in how they want their city run, and it's not just ran by whatever state law it is.
Going off of what you just said, is there anything specific in regards to limitations the city or a resident has now that a home rule charter would give a little bit more wiggle room to a city or resident if it was enacted?
So I'm going to let the chair, or who is the chair, speak to this. And I do want to say that it is on, we did make a publication. There are more than just these 6 that we listed here, but there are some differences, and I'm going to allow Brian to speak to that.
And so I'll tell on myself here. I live in one of the largest subdivisions in the city of Liberty Hill, which is Liberty Park. And so as we become, you get to see in these groups, these little chats, a lot of people like, we need this, and we need this, and we have 3 council people that also live there, and I'm telling on them, and they're defending our city all the time. The coolest thing about this charter is that as you become home rule, if those people decide to come together and say, you know what, we need to stop asking for it and making an ordinance. In this, and I believe it's section 4, as you go in there, you can see that you can have a referendum, which we can add an ordinance. So let's say all the people at Liberty Park get together and they find all the registered voters. I believe it's 25%, which is 25% of 3,100 or something like that voters. That was a few months ago. If you can get 25% of the people to get signatures that live inside Liberty Hill, you can take that now, and it's certified by the city secretary, and it goes to council, and council will approve it to go to the voters. That, to me, I think is a big change. There's a lot of ordinance, there's a lot of things. We get people that come from other areas, advice from our school district, our superintendent, and so now the people, they don't even have to go to the city council to get it. The people themselves can actually pull that as a vote. Recall elections are one thing they can do too. So if people decide, I don't like the way the governance is on this, or these things are being done this way, now as a McGowan home rule, they'll be able to do that also. So that's something that you can't do as a general city.
You mentioned recall elections. Is there a process now that
So general rule does cities like we do now, there's only, oh gosh, I'm quoting say law, but I believe the only way that you can get rid of anyone that's elected is by the unethical, anything that's unethical, they fall underneath the state law. So like if they're arrested, all sorts of different judicial stuff that comes in behind that. And that's just kind of how you have some state people that are still have DUIs and stuff. So it's some unethical board, and I don't know the specific law on it. Trying to go back to my poli-sci days, but I believe there's some, like any of the unethical behavior, that's the only way you can get rid of them. So if you didn't like the way they legislated, if you believe they were doing nepotism, or if you believe there was corruption, you couldn't go in here now to recall those people.
So now, I'm sorry, please go ahead.
So a recall, let's fast forward and say it gets passed. A recall is done, I believe it is, where's Carly now? I believe it is 25%, right? Am I right? Yeah, she's texting me now to tell me I was right. So it is 25% of voters. My number in my head was back in the summer, and it was like 3,100 registered voters. And with our general election and the big push from both sides of the aisle there, we probably have maybe 4,100, 4,000 voters. So you need 25% of those to come together. So 25%, Ms. Majors, 25% of 4,000.
You're looking at the wrong person.
25% of 4,000, whatever that is, which is 1,000. So you need 1,000 signatures, a little bit less than that. and they would have to be registered voters.
That's what the current, like the home rule charter process?
If you become a home rule school,
Okay, gotcha.
that's correct. And then they would be able to get, they'd have to get those signatures, and have to get them certified, which means certified through the city. The city would have to certify through the county that they're registered voters, and that they're approved, that they're a registered voter, or whatever that is. And then the number would be what they need, and then now council, which the way state law works, our council's found this out, there's a shall and should, and I believe that they have to approve that. If they decide not to, it becomes another judicial issue, but they'll get to approve that and bring it to the voters. And that's how that would work.
So if the home rule charter passes, does the city have kind of a game plan on how to educate residents on the new changes and the abilities they will have moving forward? Is there kind of an action plan if it does pass?
So as a city, we can educate. And we have it on our website. We provided a pamphlet by our BIO, and that gives the information for you. But I do know that if you have any questions, you can call the city secretary. If you're in city limits, you should have received. This is the home rule charter. This is what was created. It took a year, and I want to give a little bit of background. The former council picked 16 residents within the city limits, and they became the charter commission, and they spent a whole year with our city lawyer designing and looking at other cities to see what would best fit for the city of Liberty Hill, and they designed this. And so as a city, our responsibility is to print it out, to send it out to all the registered voters, but then your responsibility is to make sure that you read it, and if you have questions, you're welcome to reach out to the city secretary or I guess I would say anyone on the commission. They're no longer on the commission, so you can go and talk to any one of them and ask them questions. But if you did not receive this, then I would say you need to call the city secretary and ask her for a copy, and we can get you one.
So the home rule charter is adding a council member and also gives the mayor an ability to vote. If this passes, are you guys having to hold a special election to add a new council member right after, or how's that going to work?
So, I actually want to answer I'm going to go into both of those. The one thing about the last article, if you look in here, the last article is put there. If you go look at other charters, I'm sure you're all going to do it tonight. You go look at other charters, especially Cedar Park, for example. Theirs was done in 1987. You see that they did one in like 2010, and it was a deletion. They were deleting the last article, which we have in ours too, that shows about transitioning. So this is actually like answering your question. When this happens, there has transition information in there. In section 10.3, it says that at the May 2025 election held under charter, council members for the at-large places 2, 4, and 6, which would be the new one, will be held and shall be elected. And then it talks about as May 2027. So here we are in 2045, we're still going to have that in there. And so that's why it's at the very end. And so my son or whoever else is commissioner or mayor then can vote to have those things taken off so they're not followed and they're irrelevant. And so that answers that. And so there is a transition period. And so that will just be added on because currently now it's 3 in 1 year and 2 in the other with the mayor, is that right? And then so then it'll be now 3 in the 1 and then 3 with the mayor then next year. And so there's no special election that needs to be done, no extra funds or anything that has to be done. So that's part of the transition of that.
So adding the mayor though and adding another council member, is that standard to do when you're doing a home rule charter, or is that there something, a strategy you guys have?
I know you were going to. So here's the thing. I have to give a shout out to my vice chair, Carlin. She's my favorite over there. She knows how to work AI better than anybody in this room. Anyway, one of the things that her and I loved our commission was that we were made up of people. We had teachers and educators and doctors and lawyers and people that worked in ISDs, and we had former mayor and former councilmen. It was amazing. We didn't always agree, so I loved it. I love that we didn't agree. Like, I would sit back and be like, yes, we don't agree. And it was great because then I knew that we were governing, right? That's what our forefathers wanted us to do. So as we governed and as we put those things together, we made sure that one of the things that was questioned was, okay, you know what, let's have the mayor. Somebody was like, hey, the mayor needs a vote. Or, okay, let's look at it. So currently, if we kept the council the way it was, it would be 5 plus the mayor, which currently is 6 council people, right? The mayor's the 6th. And so all of us mathematicians here think that if they're all gonna vote on something, tiebreaker, who's the tiebreaker now? Because currently the mayor serves as a tiebreaker in a general rule city. But if we have her have a vote, or the mayor, now there's 6 people, so who breaks the tie, right? So you got 3 and 3, and who does that? We did ask AI and some other people in the state, and there is some other states that or other cities that actually do have 6 with their mayor, and their mayor has a vote. And they do all sorts of stuff, like if the mayor votes this way or whatnot, or if it's a tie, it's broken, or it's not broken. That's pretty much, it's a dead bill, or dead whatever they're trying to do. We were like, no, we're not gonna do that, because that kind of ties up legislation in your city. So what we decided was that if we did math, right? And we said, well, cool, if the mayor's gonna have a vote, then we need to go ahead and add an extra council person. We also looked at the same data as the ISD looks at, and the same data as the city looks at. We were planning ahead for, I'm thinking about the year-wise. We planned ahead in transition as we get bigger, we're gonna need more representation on our council. So we thought in 5 years what that looks like, and so we said, cool, the population is gonna be more, so we probably will need another council person. And then also, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you cannot change your charter for 2 years, I believe. Is it 2 or 5? 2. It's 2, thank you everyone. It's 2 years, and so we knew that what happens if we left it the way it was, it became a big problem, there's no override in it, so you would have to wait 2 years to rewrite it. So we tried to add everything we could and plan for what 2028 would look like, or 2027. So we were just trying to plan that way with the population, and that's why we added the extra vote for the mayor.
And I'll speak a little bit to this because it impacts me right now. What is proposed in home rule is kind of what happens generally, Georgetown and our neighboring cities. What's happening right now, and I do not, as mayor, do not have a vote, but yet my name, and this is just for education purposes, my name goes on whatever council votes on. So if council votes on an ordinance, my name is the one that's written on it, but yet I didn't have a say in it. And as a mayor who was elected by residents within city limits, I feel like I'm their voice. And so there's a piece of me that feels that those who elected me as mayor to this position are not really being heard because I don't have my vote. So, food for thought.
Another proposed change in the home rule charter is moving up the age from 18 to 21 to run for mayor. You know, the voting age is 18, and to be a council member, according to the home rule charter, is still 18. So what do you tell ambitious 18-year-olds that maybe want to be a mayor right away? How do you explain to them that the age is getting done if this passes?
Yeah, so one of the most unique things about this charter is that any city out there that's currently trying to become home rule, they follow a Blogic book, which is the author. TML puts it out there. TML will help with an exposition of this and to go through that. All the other cities, we got a lot of things from cities. We got things from Burnett, we got things from Leander, Cedar Park, Georgetown. One of the things that we noticed inside Williamson County that nobody had was that everybody had a cutoff of age. And it was all the same. To run for mayor, it was all one age. Now, we did all say, just joking so we can have a little fun here, we did all say, hey, if they want to be mayor, they need to be able to get Miller Lite. There was that joke. But it was really cool. We wanted to make it unique, and we believe that, I never thought I would have to explain this sitting next to people from the ISD, but I don't think 18-year-olds are bad at making choices, right? But we wanted them to be able to come on and just have that stopping point right on council. So instead of, a lot of them get that ambition. I've met these kids, and you all have, you've had them in your classrooms, and they're like, I'm ready to be mayor, I'm ready to be mayor, and I want them to be mayor too. I have one too. You know, I want him to be, he wants to be congressman or something one day, and an astronaut, and I want that. But we need to be able, and I think one of the people had said, we need to be able to teach them the right way, so they need to get their feet wet on being a council person. So hey, look, I'm sorry you can't run for mayor, but you know what, you can run for council, you can learn how things are legislated, you can go to TML conferences, you can be, you know, there's some really great council people that are here. Wait, Ashley, hey, buddy. You can be taught by those people and learn from that, and learn that way. And then when you decide, when you turn 21, then you can run for mayor. And how much more education that you get from the world of being on council. And so that's why we did that. I think that was like one of my favorite things that we added on here, because I think it's really neat that we actually thought about it. We thought about your 18-year-old kid that wants to run. We want them to run, but we wanted to make sure that we don't put them in a position where it gets them really roughed up or make them never want to do politics again, you know? So that's where we changed and made the age the way it is. That makes sense.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that. Final question, more of a clarifying question as I asked the district. For those that live in the ETJ, will they be seeing this on their ballot this year?
No, ma'am. So it's only the people that live inside the city of Liberty Hill. If you look at it on the map, the ones that are inside that are impacted by it. It looks like we're always landlocked, and I think some people hate that word, but it's a small area, but it's still growing, right? It's still growing. We're still grabbing areas legally the way that is, and our city's expanding. But yeah, it is everybody within the city limits that are able to see this, that got this in their mail, and those are the ones that will see that on the ballot.
I do want to speak to that because our city limits are so small, but decisions that we make do impact our ETJ. In fact, I was just talking to somebody here tonight that is in the ETJ, and we were discussing how important for me as mayor it is to hear from them, even though they don't necessarily have a vote. It still is important because my decisions still impact them. And what I would encourage even those in the ETJ that are hearing this and may not be able to vote, I would still encourage you to read it. There are barcodes, you can look it up online, come to the city website. And if you have friends and family in the city limits, discuss it with them, have real conversation with them, because it is what is impacting our community. And together, it's really making Liberty Hill great together. City, ISD, us all combined. And so if you are in the ETJ, I would encourage you to still play a part and encourage those that are in city limits to understand what's going to be on their ballot and have discussions with them, and then to be able to make it on voting day and place their vote.
Thank you guys so much. And actually, you mentioned the handout. We'll have the Liberty Hill Independent will post a digital copy of the handout that was here at the event, so that way viewers on Facebook Live can have access to it as well, and they can see the QR codes and have links to everything also. Mayor Mencia, Mr. Rivera, thank you so much for chiming in and giving us some education on that home rule charter, which will be Proposition A under the City of Liberty Hill ballot measure. I want to open up the floor to the audience and Facebook Live to ask any questions. I'll come around with a mic and let you guys have an opportunity to answer any questions you may have. I want to first address the room. Anybody in the room have a question that they would like to be heard? Oh, okay, sure. Thank you, Mr. Fuller. Appreciate it.
What are the upcoming scheduled events for both the district and the city in case any citizens would like to ask you any follow-up questions? Is there anything scheduled coming up before voting starts?
Go ahead and speak on the city side. Sculpture Festival is this Saturday, so I know that that is one place that we're going to start bringing the word out. Any type of city function, we will have some booth or something to get out the word.
Thank you, Mayor. Great question. So we will be at the Sculpture Festival as well. Information booth if you have any questions. We also have a bus tour coming up October 25th, so if you'd like to see some of our new facilities and talk about the two propositions on the ballot, we'll do it there. Speaking at the Chamber next week as well. Also, as superintendent, I welcome you to invite me to your neighborhoods or any businesses. Happy to come talk to y'all. All y'all have to do is send me an email, superintendent@libertyhill.texed.net, and I'm happy to come speak to you and your group.
And that's TXED, right? Yep. You have another question?
Yeah, I have a question for the school district. The district continues to grow, property values continue to go up. One of the questions I continue to see online, and I have there's more money coming into the district. Why do we need to go out to Proposition A if those things are occurring?
So if I understood you right, you looked at all the growth, or the question is all the growth, so there's more taxes coming in, so why do we need additional revenue in the 6 extra pennies, right? Well, as we Texas has the equalization wealth, so as our tax values go up, the state contribution goes down. So we always end up with the same amount. Now, the Vader is actually a mechanism to where the first 3 pennies are considered golden pennies out of the 6, and we're able to keep all of the revenue. So it doesn't affect state funding. We keep all the revenue, and it's not subject to recapture. The next 3 pennies we're asking for is what the state considers copper pennies, and those are subject to recapture, but those also don't affect the state funding. So it allows Liberty Hill to keep that additional $6.2 million. Great question, thank you.
Anybody else in the room have a question before I pivot? Oh, hold on, we got one more person here in the room. Sorry, Alex.
I don't know, like something for the question that was just asked. There's also a startup cost associated with building a new school. So you not only do you have to build the infrastructure for the school to support the school, but you also have teachers in the school to actually teach the kids. So I think that's something that's often forgotten when it comes to, yes, while we do have new subdivisions going in, while we do have new property tax revenue, there's also startup cost burdens that are associated with building new elementary schools, middle schools, and high schools.
So I'll just address that comment, and thank you for that. So along with that, because we talked about how the INS side does the school building and everything associated, but he made a great point. Anytime you start a school, there are additional costs on the staff to get the school started. So especially the first year a school is open, that is expensive to a school district. This year we opened 2, next year we won't open any, and then the following year, the high school will move, we'll open this school as a middle school, and then we'll have an additional, we'll have elementary number 8 open as well. So as Liberty Hill grows, our budget will continue to grow, and we'll continue to need additional staff, and we'll have additional needs for the students. So thank you for the comment.
We'll pivot to Alex reporting for Facebook Live questions.
It's kind of sort of a question or a comment. It says, I'm concerned I'm going to have to look on the page, but there are some people on social media saying their Liberty Hill school tax went up $500.
So if your school taxes went up $500, that would be directly related to the value of your home or your small business. So can't really speak to the individual. I can tell you in Liberty Hill, the average price of a home is $462,000. So that is an additional impact with Proposition A of $18 a month, $212 a year. That's a lot, not taking that lightly. So if you double that to $950,000, I can see, or $1 million home, I can see where the tax impact, the increase might be $500, but I would have to see their actual tax bill to verify that.
I would come to the sculpture festival, have a chance to talk and go to the booth. Any other questions on Facebook Live? Nope, we're good there? All right. Thank you to our panelists for being here. We can give them a round of applause for their time and all their information. Really appreciate it. Really appreciate the time and all of the detailed information to keep us as informed voters when we go to the ballot box later on in November. So thank you so much. I'm going to excuse our panel, and we're going to actually bring up another panel to talk about media. And it's going to be a really interesting discourse because we'll get to talk about how media has evolved through some experts and educators. Hopefully, Mr. Principal Kohler will give us a little extra time. I know we're a little behind, so hopefully he's okay with that. Great. So we're going to have a really great discussion on media, how it's evolved, and how local media, especially here at Liberty Hill, where we do have local media, how that's impacting our community in contrast to what you may be accustomed to at the mainstream level. So I'd love to bring up our journalists and educators up to the stage, and then we'll start the discussion. Everyone on Facebook Live, give us a minute just to switch up. Don't go anywhere because it's going to be a good conversation. I don't want you guys to miss it. We won't take too much more of your time. So you've been here until this point. Stay on. To our Facebook Live people who are watching, just give us a second. We're waiting on one more person, and then they'll hop in here with the panel with us. And while we're waiting for another panelist to join us, I just wanted to let you guys know that we're going to ask some questions and have a very casual discourse among all of us on media so you can learn a little bit more of our perspective. And then we're going to segue to having the audience ask questions if you have any media curiosities. So if you're on Facebook Live and you have a question regarding media, this is a great opportunity to listen in and jot down some questions that you may have that you can give, and Alex will share them. And with our audience here as well, if you have any questions you want to ask the media, this is a great time to learn from us and get our perspective. All right, looks like we have everybody here, so I'm going to sit down too because I'm technically a media person also, but I wanted to get started on having everybody introduce themselves and a little bit of their media background. So if we can start with Scott, and then we'll work our way to the right.
Why is it so challenging to turn on a mic? I don't know. Well, my name is Scott Akanowicz. I'm co-owner and publisher of the Liberty Hill Independent. And, well, I think most people around know me as a sports guy, and so that's what I kind of try to be, for the most part. But I started my journalism career as an Army journalist. I was in the Army for 10 years. and I branched out into civilian journalism, and eventually the good Lord led me here to Liberty Hill, where I've been for 5 years now, and have this great opportunity to partner with Rachel here and continue to do what we do with the community. So it's great to be here, and yeah, I'm just blessed to be here in this wonderful place.
Hi, I'm Rachel Madison. I'm the co-owner and publisher of the Liberty Hill Independent. I've been a journalist for over 15 years. I started out as a college journalist, running my college newspaper, and went from there to work for a local small town newspaper up to a statewide magazine. And then after moving to Texas, I started working for the Independent as a freelancer. Kind of worked my way up to being a staff writer, and then, like Scott said, had the opportunity last year to purchase the newspaper and take on a larger role. And it's something that we love doing. We love Liberty Hill, and it's a great way to be a part of the community.
My name's Austin Luter, and I do a few things. I am a journalism professor at Tarleton State University, where I teach most of the undergraduate classes in journalism. I'm also the director of a thing called the Texas Center for Community Journalism. And what we do at the center is, I tell people my day job is teaching journalism to college students, and my other job is giving support and training and development to community newspapers across the state. So folks like Rachel, places like the Independent. I came to education from community journalism. Started out as a sports guy and was a publisher of multiple newspapers before I went to the academy. And to say all that, I also say my wife and I also own and operate my hometown newspaper. So I'm still a publisher. I'm still in the business. We own the Whitesboro News Record up in Grayson County, which is north of Denton. And we're seeing a lot of the growth that y'all are seeing here. I guess they're coming north out of Austin to y'all. They're coming north out of Dallas to us. So a lot of similarities here. But tonight I'm just kind of like a circuit riding preacher. I like to come and talk to folks about community journalism wherever they will have me, and I appreciate y'all having me.
Hi, my name is Andrea Costa, and I am the journalism teacher at Liberty Hill High School. And this is my first year in Liberty Hill ISD. However, I've been teaching for 22 years. Ironically, started out as a communications major and ended up doing the teaching thing, but I do teach journalism, photojournalism, and speech and debate, as well as a professional communications class at Liberty Hill High School. So, and yearbook, sorry, and our award-winning yearbook. So, yes, so very busy, very busy.
And you already know, my name's O'Dallas. I am a staff writer with the Liberty Hill Independent, but I started off as a journalist at 17 years old, which was 17 years ago, even though now you're going to add it up and know my age. But started off as a newspaper reporter, went to college, got my bachelor's and master's in journalism, and then became a TV reporter for a short time, and then pivoted to marketing and was head of marketing for a big home service company around here in Austin. And now I'm working with the Liberty Hill Independent, getting back to my journalism roots. So I want to get to kind of the first question that I have is, journalism, there's a craft and skill that makes a journalist a true journalist. What do you guys think is that craft or skill, and do you think that that standard is visible or being upheld in kind of the media that we see today? Anyone can start, no order necessary.
I'll start. So to answer your question, it's kind of yes and no. I think one of the biggest things that we need to see, the real skill that we need to see in journalism is the ability to be objective. Obviously, we're journalists, but we're also human, so we have our own opinions. But in my opinion, it's our job to make sure that the reader doesn't know what our opinion is. It's our job to give them both sides of any issue or any story, and that's really one of the best ways that we can keep journalism ethical and serve with integrity.
I agree with that. Yeah, go ahead. It's a free-for-all.
It's a free-for-all. I think craft and skill are things that are that you can train. I think before you get to that, it's more qualities, right? I think there's just innate qualities that journalists should possess. One of those is honesty. Look, I hosted a panel of college students at a Presidency Association a while back, and these are young Gen Z students talking to old gray-haired publishers. And these publishers say, "What is it that y'all want from us?" And this one kid, he said, "To be told the truth," right? So I think that's more valuable now than ever. I think empathy is another quality that a journalist should possess, and a curiosity, right? A good journalist has to ask that question: so what? So what? A work ethic. I mean, Lord knows none of us are getting rich doing this. We're working really hard. I have a student who's at one of the TV stations in Abilene. She graduated in May, and 2 weeks later was in the field with the camera, and now she's anchoring the morning newscast. She's doing great. We're going to see her on one of the networks one of these days, and she called and she said, "Mr. Luter, you were so right. I'm working really hard, making not very much money, but I'm having the time of my life," right? So we can't discount the work ethic. You got to be a little self-deprecating, I think, is a quality of a good journalist. The newspaper that I own, we had a breaking story last night. I don't know if there's any city people still left here, but we had a city manager who was fired abruptly last night, and it was after deadline, and it was after 3 a.m. before I looked at the front page, and my wife called to let me know, well, there was a couple typos that we just didn't catch at 3 a.m. And I think you have to just accept that and be self-deprecating, and you have to have a thick skin. My wife does not have a background in journalism, but she does now. I say she operates the newspaper. I'm at the university more than I'm at the newspaper. And she's just kind of amazed how I just kind of let that stuff fall off my back. And at the end of the day, too, I think just being open-minded and being flexible. So I think craft and skill, we can teach skills, but I think it's more of a quality, the qualities of a good journalist. And I think we still have good folks. I think the industry has changed, but I think those qualities still exist, and I'm optimistic.
We got one mic on over here first. We'll go with you first, and then Scott will have you go after.
Okay. They said it all, really. What I talk to my students about in the classroom is really just about seeking the truth and being able to discern between your reliable and unreliable sources, especially in this day and age. And I feel like sometimes that discernment is really something that's innate. You can really tell. It is something you can learn, but I think some kids really have it more than others and can identify it, and it's really important for them to be able to do that. So.
I would add to that too. I think just this generation of students that I see coming up are maybe better than that than any other generation. It's not the Gen Zs that are getting duped by the scams online. It's the boomers, right? And I'm not disparaging any boomers, but they come up. They are digital natives, right? So they have some analytical skills that I didn't, certainly way back then.
Okay, I think for me, the most important thing is the ability to be a storyteller. Reporter, basically, we are regurgitates facts. And with all due respect to reporters and what they do, I specialize more in feature articles, telling stories, that are human interest, things of that nature. And I think when I read somebody else's work, if I feel like I'm there experiencing what is written about, that's to me is one of the best things a writer can do, is to bring something to life and almost create in the reader's mind's eye what they're describing. So to me, all those tangible things are really good as far as the skills and everything it takes, but to me, writing is an art form. And just like writing a song or painting a picture or whatever, there's a certain amount of God-given ability. You can learn all the X's and O's and all the grammar and all this and that. But I think you really need to have a storyteller's heart in order to do this job really well. And that's one thing I pride myself on, in being able to make stories come to life. So that's my take on that whole situation.
So, you know, with journalism kind of evolving from that printing press to digital push now environment, what do you guys think is your experience with technology journalism? Is it helping it, or does it injure it, or maybe it does both?
Yes, I think it does both, for sure. On the plus side, I mean, information is easier to get now than it's ever been before. You know, back in the day, if something big happened, you didn't know about it, especially if it was on the other side of the world, even the other side of the country or the state from where you were at. Now, something happens, we know about it almost immediately. So on that front, obviously, that's really great. One thing that I think is a little bit detrimental to the digital direction that things have gone is that there is a lot of, for lack of a better term, citizen journalism. People who think that they are reporting facts or reporting news, but they don't actually have all of the facts or the information. They don't have the skill set, like what we just spoke about, to disseminate that information in a good way. And I think that can make it a little bit hard for the general population to be able to delineate between what's actual, real, factual news and what's a rumor.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to that. Look, I think every county and every community has a guy with a Facebook page and a police scanner, right? I mean, and we all know them. And you know, clearly, technology has helped journalism. We can do more work with less people more efficiently now. When I was hanging out in my hometown newspaper back in high school, they were back in the cut and paste up days, and it would take 3 or 4 people 3 days to do what we can do in a couple hours now with the computer. I have a friend in the TV, I have several friends in the TV business, but when, 25 years ago, if you were covering a high school football game live, you had to go drive a big truck with a thing and a satellite, and it was a thing, and now it's all that. So I think, clearly it has helped, and it always has, right? The telegraph lines, the railroad, the radio, the television, all these advancements. I mean, this is just the next advancement. I think where it has hindered is I think the 24-hour news cycle has become about a 15-minute news cycle, and that's not always good, right? I think that, especially in the mainstream media, that rush to get it right, or to get it first, has outweighed getting it right.
Right.
And I think that's bad. And I know we're going late tonight. I can tell you all kinds of colorful stories about this, but the cable news, which I'm not even sure that's actually news anymore, or ever was, they're charged with getting it first. And I can remember the day of the Fort Hood shooting that happened that morning, and I came home that evening, and my wife said, "You haven't been watching this?" I said, "Well, how many corrections have they already?" You know what I'm saying? how many corrections have they already issued because they didn't get it right? And I think that's just as detrimental to the public's trust in the media as that old boy with that Facebook page and the police scanner who's not a very good citizen journalist.
I was going to say, even with technology, that means access to more data information of viewership and to consumers that are taking in the news. And from in my experience working on TV, I remember I had a news director that wanted stories based off of the demographic of viewers that they had. And for me, I was like, news is news. I think every person is entitled to know what's important that's going to impact their society. And for me, I just, when we have more access to technology and those very minute, those very specific details on, analytics, on viewership and things like that, and we get more wanting to customize the news to that, so we get better viewership and better ratings rather than, making sure that people are informed and doing our civic duty as journalists to make sure everybody knows equally what they need to know.
Well, and I think also too that technology has changed the fact, like the generation of students that I teach, they're not seeking out their news. They're not watching the news at 6 o'clock. They're not going to the American Statesman website each morning to get that morning update. They want that news delivered to them, right? So, good, bad, I don't know. That's just the world that we live in. And I'm afraid that if we let the algorithm decide what news comes to us, then we get siloed in our own little information silos. Because people, I don't know how many people nowadays want to be informed. I think they want to be entertained. And that's a great philosophical discussion. But, the thing about a good balanced independent newspaper in that, look, you're going to get this side, you're going to get this side, you're going to get it down the middle, and then, God forbid, you get to make up your own mind, right? So I think that's, again, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to talk over anybody, but yeah, we have to be careful about getting siloed in our own information tunnels.
Right.
Yeah, just to add to that, that's one of the things that I'm really proud of at The Independent is that we tell both sides and we try to tell it right down the middle and let people make their own decisions. And it's really interesting. It could be something as simple as announcing, a new fast food restaurant is coming to Liberty Hill. We just present the facts, and it's a lot of fun for us to sit back and just watch the community share their opinions on, why they think that's a good new place to come or a bad place to come and why. And I think that's really the core of what our job is, even if it's something as simple as that, just to share the facts and then let people make their own minds up about what they think about it.
Well, speaking of the Liberty Hill Independent, the Independent, what makes it so unique is that it's exclusive and custom to the city of Liberty Hill and surrounding areas. What would you say sets local reporting apart from what one would see on the mainstream side of things? And this is aside from the fact that it's exclusive to the city and surrounding areas, but more so on, the reporting style and the reporting philosophy.
Okay, this is a really good question. Okay, and this is the thing for me that separates community journalism from all the other types. Now, just from a sports writer standpoint, the relationships that I build with not only the coaches, but the kids themselves, the players, the parents, the administrators, everybody, you get to, when I go out and cover a game or do a story about a kid on the football team, whatever, I feel like I'm providing a service to the community. Like, I'm telling this kid's story, and his parents and his grandparents are gonna love this and be proud, and that's just something that even if I was covering, I'm not gonna lie, I like to be covering professional sports, at the highest level or something, but those aren't the kind of grassroots stories you're gonna get to tell at that level, or even college. So for me, being a community paper you get to really build those local relationships with people, and not just in the sports realm, but throughout the school district, which is kind of my beat. And you can tell stories at a different level than you can, and it just kind of has more of a it's more of a grassroots feel, and it's more gratifying to me as a writer because I feel like I'm doing more than just telling a story. I'm kind of like, I don't know, kind of part of the fabric of the community in a way, and that's something I get a great deal of gratification from.
I think Scott, when you mentioned the relationship part of it, there's another aspect to it too where, we get this beautiful opportunity to have a close connection with the people that run the paper. So when there's story tips or you think that something should get covered, there's this wonderful access that we get to have, to connect with, the editor, the owners, and let them know, like, hey, this is what's going on in the neighborhood, I think you should cover it, and have those conversations, whereas, bigger box, news outlets get thousands and thousands of emails, and you're probably 0.00001% chance of getting a response. So we do have a beautiful opportunity to have a great relationship with our local media.
He kind of stole my answer, but no.
Oh, he did. Oh, okay.
I was gonna say, the local newspaper, that they are telling the story of that community, and they're history writers, and that local community newspaper is written. Once it's written, it's there, and for many generations to go back and read if they wanted to. I know my mom cuts out things from the newspaper all the time and saves it and laminates it and whatnot, but
I have a clippings book, so
right. So I really feel like local reporting is, and there are also those reporters, those journalists are the liaisons between one community member to another. Maybe one that couldn't be at that event is now able to almost feel like they were there based on the story that was told in the writing. So that was.
Rachel, oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
Well, it's almost 9 o'clock, and I'll just put it to you this way. The Liberty Hill Independent is the only newspaper that gives a damn about Liberty Hill, Texas. And that's what makes local journalism matter. Y'all are growing, and that's great, and y'all are having all these changes, and y'all are so blessed to have a dedicated newspaper. There are so many towns that as they grow, they lost their newspaper. Salina, Texas doesn't have a newspaper anymore, right? Prosper doesn't have a newspaper anymore. So y'all embrace that. But yeah, as publishers, what makes it different is, that's kind of that self, like if we get it wrong in the paper, we're gonna hear about it at the grocery store. We're gonna hear about it at church, right? If we get it right, we're gonna, sometimes hear about it when you get it right. But to his point, nobody can tell the story of Liberty Hill, Texas like the Liberty Hill Independent. Madam Mayor, you may have some controversy at City Hall, and it's a hot agenda item, and the TV station comes in maybe for a night and gets some video of some angry people, and then they're gone, right? They're not there. They're not there the next day. They're not there to help the community usher through that. And they're sure not there when, I heard a school board president one time, and the TV stations were in the back room. He said, hey, folks, we have this meeting every month, right? We'd love to see you every month. And the Liberty Hill Independent is the only media outlet that's at that meeting every month. And there's something to be said for that.
Thank you, Austin. I like those comments. I don't know if you know this, but back in the day when the Independent first started, almost 37 years ago, our slogan was the only paper that gives a hoot about Liberty Hill. So it's funny that you say that. That's still true today, even though we don't use that slogan anymore. But one thing that I think is really great about our staff is 90% of us are Liberty Hill residents. We live in Liberty Hill, we work in Liberty Hill, our kids go to Liberty Hill schools, we do business here. You are gonna see us at the grocery store, at the local boutiques, at church, places like that, because we are part of the community. We're not just here one day to report on something happening and gone the next. We're here day in and day out. And something that I'm proud of that we're able to do is really follow stories as they're happening and get more in depth with what's going on in the community. We're not just, passing by, sharing one aspect of an issue. We're able to really dive deep and share all different facets of things that are going on. Like Andrea said, we're really writing the history of our community. I know for a long time growing up, especially when I was in college, I was told all the time, journalism's a dying industry. Why would you want to be a part of something? You're never going to find a good job. But I mean, here I am 15 years later with a job, so. All that just to say that community journalism is extremely important. Whether you get your news through a print publication, digitally, social media, we're on all those platforms, and we do that because we're trying to meet people where they are, and give them the stories that do matter the most to our community members, whether that's, who won the football game Friday night, or what happened at the city council meeting that week.
I want to, because we're getting short on time, I want to make sure we have room for audience questions. Do we have some, Alex?
Not on
Facebook?
Not on Facebook.
Oh, do you have a question?
Sure, I'll ask a question.
Okay.
So, as journalists, the Independent, you guys are everywhere. You're at all of our meetings. You're at our events. You are telling the stories of the town. You're spreading awareness for all the important causes. You're documenting our history. You're supporting the community constantly, every single day. So my question for you, it's expensive to operate a newspaper. I mean, you are paying professional journalists, professional photographers. You're paying for print. How can the community in turn support you for all the support you're giving to us?
So the question was, how can the community support the Liberty Hill Independent paper as the Liberty Hill Independent newspaper has been supporting the community?
Okay, that's a great question. So the Independent is 100% advertiser funded. So the way that we operate is through the support of local businesses who advertise with us, and we literally would not exist without their monthly monetary support in the form of ads. And so for that, we were very grateful because we have a lot of great advertisers that they partnered with us for years, and they continue to partner with us. And every time we sell an ad, we feel like it's a win-win. It's good for us because it keeps us in business. We're able to continue doing what we love to do and sharing the news with the community. But on the flip side, our advertisers are getting a great service in that they're reaching over 13,000 homes in Liberty Hill. And the people that are reading our newspaper are Liberty Hill residents, people that are doing business in our town, and those are the people that you want to reach.
I can't speak to the P&L of the Liberty Hill Independent, but I will say, people ask me what the future of, what the business model looks like for the future of community journalism. And I think it's going to, I don't think it's going to be a one-size-fits-all, a silver bullet. I think every market's different. But what the advertiser has here in Liberty Hill is a great value, right? It's a 13,000 print circulation, a free circulation. The superintendent said the average home here is north of $300,000. So that is a great value to that advertiser. And I talk to publishers across the state that are clinging to weekly paid circulation. And I tell them I think a monthly free product in a lot of markets is going to be part of the answer. And I think you're going to see more of it. And so from a business standpoint, I would say for y'all's market, I think y'all are maybe a little bit ahead of some other folks. That's a great value. It's a beautiful tabloid. And so, look, attention spans are a whole lot shorter than they used to be. When I was a kid, you didn't have to read. My mother didn't subscribe to the local paper because she didn't want to wait until Friday to get it. She could buy it on Thursday morning, and people don't remember to pick it up as much anymore. So the fact that you're free, the fact that you're forcing, for lack of a better term, forcing your way into their house, you're reminding them that you're there, you're staying top of mind. I think as far as the business model of the future of community journalism, we're going to see a whole lot more of that. And I applaud y'all for taking that. I really, especially in markets like this, I think it's something that more folks are going to have to look at.
Yeah, any other questions anywhere? All right. Well, I want to thank everyone for joining the forum tonight. I hope that tonight's event was informative as you make your way to the polls this year. A reminder, Election Day is November 5th. Also, early voting begins October 21st in case you want to bank your vote sooner rather than later. Thanks so much, everybody. I hope you have a good night.